5:30. We're gonna block off.
Morning, 5:30.
I guess we're basically here for this half hour ahead of time. Get the committee assignments nailed down.
Might make sense, Jerry, just to walk through what each committee does and
I'm going to do each one as we do. So we're not like talking about it once and then coming back.
Right.
I think the smart thing would be to, instead of crossing Andy's name off of all of these, just fill him in for all of these. He's going to be here for the next little bit anyway. Andy Kearns.
He's back?
Oh, they have the elector?
No, I mean.
No.
Yeah,
No.
committee.
There's time.
Yeah, so budget committee.
I really want to be on that. I was on it for 10 years up to last year. And I really would like to be on that.
Well, Jen's not here, so she doesn't get to say it now, so
Okay.
that's easy. Jess, you want to stay on that?
I'd love to stay on, but I'm happy to do something else.
That one basically, I mean, when is that going to be? Basically, at least twice a year.
Twice, sometimes 3 days.
typically what will happen for budget process is Gail, principal of the school, will meet with us and we'll meet with John Stokey and the teachers, and there's a draft budget that comes to the SAU office. And then we ask Gail a lot of tough questions and look at enrollment projections and special education in all of those pieces. And then a rough draft budget is developed. And then we invite the Jackson board members who are on the budget committee to the SAU office, and we take a look at the overall budget. They can ask questions, kind of run through, and then if there are long-term projects, for example, if preschool is decided you're going to move forward, at that point, you start thinking about warrant articles as well, prior to coming to the full Jackson School Board meeting. So usually that takes place in November, December, beginning of December, and Keith and Jess will come down, call Becky, they're looking at these things, and then you'll get a first shot at the entire budget with the Jackson School Board.
Usually in August or September, Kevin will come to the board at a meeting and ask us, do we want to give a direction to the budget? Meaning, are we going to continue with a needs budget? Meaning, what we need is what the budget will be designed around, or are we going to instruct to have a decrease to the budget? And then that starts that process of
So can we do that as whole board, you said, before the committee?
Yeah. That's that one. Policy. I'm on that one with Andy. I don't mind staying on that. Unless there's 2 people that really want to be on it. So.
We decided one.
What's policy?
What?
We decided one. We need one more first.
Yeah, I guess that would be a concern. So, does anybody want to be on that?
What is the policy?
So, policy committee. So tonight, for instance, we are having a first reading of the principal's contract and the illness bank. Those are policies that are developed out of the policy committee. So typically the way it'll work is that the committee will develop the policy and then make a recommendation to the board to adopt the policy or not. So
It could be anything, whether it's the playground or the illness thing.
and right now I wouldn't say there's a lot of workload probably coming up for the policy committee because the last couple of years we've been trying to get the policy ironed out. We're pretty much getting pretty close to it, but there'll be some policy meetings this year to probably iron out some details on actually what we're working on tonight, perhaps. But it's not a real intensive workload committee anyway. It's just, it'll be basically as needed, and that can be pretty much any time. But right now, it doesn't look like we'll be meeting that often, I guess.
If there are other policies that we find new RSAs that come into place, usually those are developed at the common level with SAU9 representative. Now it's Nancy Kellerman from Bartlett who sits on that. Those are public meetings. But let's say bullying. Bullying was a policy that came into effect Those will get developed and vetted, and then they'll come to Jackson as well. We try not to modify them too much, but sometimes there are circumstances that would be appropriate for Jackson to say, well, that's not really appropriate here, in even procedures relative to those policies. So meal charging is a policy that has to be developed. Well, that may be, the procedures in Jackson may be different than what are developed in these other schools.
Okay.
So usually we meet maybe 3-4 times for policy.
I'm not sure Jim remembered to do it. We missed this meeting, each person has to
Yeah, I
like
was gonna say she
nominate
might
person to
want to
nominate. I have one pick for her.
But don't be shy, Kate, either. if
And
it's-
a lot of times that we'll meet as a policy committee, like 15 minutes or 20 minutes before our regular scheduled meetings, just because if we're going to be around for that night, and that's oftentimes how we'll meet for a policy committee. In fact, I think that's how we met for the last probably 4 or 5 we've met with, so.
Okay, I can do that.
Do you want to sign that, Earl? The Joint Boards Committee,
I recommend we don't even have members of this one. We just pick each time who's going.
yeah, I mean, typically on the joint boards, it's trying to find someone to actually.
I know, that's what I mean.
So I mean,
Well, 5 of us on it.
well, why don't we just leave the 3 of us and
Yeah.
we'll just try to get one of us there when we can. The joint boards is the SAU 9 and SAU 13 board meetings.
Very rarely I can make those.
Yeah, and I try to make all of them when I can.
So let's
you
take
know,
my name off and let's put Jess's name on them because I don't like any of those.
Okay.
that'll be contacting for who's going actually, does that make sense?
Who's the third?
And of course, call me if nobody can make that. See where you go.
Just keep Jen on there.
Agenda, agenda. Oh, you have another copy of that?
I don't have a copy. Oh, unless it's in my packet.
No, I have extra copy right here.
Okay.
So really the work related to that would be if you're looking at the program of studies for Kent High School. If we were to take a look at late start time for,
Thank you.
there's a lot of coordination between those boards.
I will say it's helpful to go to the
Yeah,
just
The
because
last time we were traveling.
Yeah.
It typically meets 3 times a year.
And they really talk about the work that you should affect us anyway, so cool.
And that's 3 times a year.
Okay.
So there'll be one coming up in June.
Yeah, and those are actually, so that meeting and regular SAU 9 meetings, all board members are welcome and should hear it.
But yeah, if all 5 of us want to go, we can, and jobs.
Manifests, I think actually,
It should have been you and Jen on there, but I don't know why my name's listed. I didn't do it last year, you and Jen did it last year.
but I think we've, our policies, any board member can actually sign the manifest, so.
And two.
But usually it's the chair and vice chair.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're-
So we'll replace me where Keith is.
Yeah. But there are times, and for Kate, just a refresher, that's that red packet in front of you. Those are all the bills that have to get paid, and usually school board members will take a look and make sure that we're paying bills, and it's just a double check. Anybody really can review the manifest, but because you're the authorizing agent with the Jackson School Board is, before we can pay those bills, that has to be signed. Occasionally, we run into a kind of a funky board meeting schedule where we need a special manifest signing, so we may call people to do that.
Les, we wanted to have one person on that.
I really would be on, so if you have anything on, again, I've been doing that for so many years. And a little possibilities.
And the only reason why I think we should maybe only have one on that is just for scheduling purposes, because it does come up and they're usually pretty hard to schedule, and if not, they're more technical than they are philosophical, so, individuals familiar with it, so. I guess it doesn't matter if it's too long, I don't want to make it, it's only 2, I guess. Jess, you want to say anything else for me?
I know, I also, wants to take that on.
Do you want to play that?
But let's start it, because I ran it off.
Is that what, wait, is that how I get?
Yeah, one Jen.
Yeah, give that to Jen. Jen, That's for you.
Curriculum review, that's probably actually one of the more interesting ones on there, although we haven't really met for that in a while. So, leave that as such, Justin, is that on the name?
Yeah, I wouldn't. Thank you.
Special review, leave Jen on that one?
Yeah, okay. What's the real one?
I'm a special ed educator for almost 10 years.
Okay, do you want it?
What does it entail?
I don't actually know. Okay.
For example, you know, Gail, in the next month or so, there's some changing needs of the population. So it may be worth coming in and having a conversation prior to going to a full board. It's always a good idea to have a level of understanding by a board member as well as the principal or myself, so that, because you are again, the deciding board. But that would be, unless Gail, do you have a specific other review?
No, I think maybe sometimes PM is looking for advisory,
Yeah.
you know, input from the boards at the special ed level. It's just
I would take that list.
Okay.
So Kate knows the two things for now. The Joint Loss Management Committee, safety, Keith.
And somebody else wants it, and let's have to say that.
Cool. We're gonna do that. New Hampshire School Board Association delegate as available, that probably makes the most sense.
Yeah.
We typically haven't participated in that. Sometimes maybe we should. I mean, right now, I don't think SB 193 actually affects us too much, but it's definitely an area where we could be active in, but we're not, so I think that leaving it as available is fine. KHS student handbook review, who wants to go there?
I do that one.
Yes? Okay. That's pretty self-explanatory. Executive board, I think that's supposed to be there, I guess that's probably going back to when, and Jenny with those in for me, or Jess was in for me. Can't get there. Facilities, Keith and I, that possibly makes the most sense. to keep
I
us
was
there.
gonna say that unless somebody else really wants to have your report.
I give up my seat, somebody won't really want to say it, because I won't be that anyway, so.
You
Yeah.
guys do a great job.
Leap, should we scratch both leaps?
Yeah, I think what you're going to see is Katie's making some changes, that will be rolled into the curriculum review. And I think you'll see some invitations regarding some of that curriculum review coming up.
And is calendar getting scrapped too for the most part?
Well, right now, it is, and the direction that comes to you folks.
But we could still have a community, no, actually, we could do it at one level. Yeah, the discussion on whether we want to follow the calendar or not.
And I think an example of that, why it's not too pertinent to us anymore, even, because we said keep the bus schedule the same, we'll always try to coordinate the best that we can. But we have blizzard bags where we know some are already not
Yeah.
ostensibly following the calendar anyway, but I think that's best left.
But we also have, kids in high school.
I can adjust the dilemma.
We don't say it anymore.
And I like the way that it's actually going with
Yeah.
superintendent with this administration and staff figures out the best calendar, the parameters of it, that's what you know, so we'll scratch that for now unless it's unrelevant for some reason. Career Tech Advisory Council,
So they meet once a month, and usually typically very early in the morning, 7:30. And because it's a regional career and technical center, there is representation. So if somebody has a keen interest in the career tech center, they're open to the public, but if somebody would like to be the sitting member, we can make that happen as well.
and we always use a member of the Jackson community for a specific reason. I think we'll know that reason for all of it. Where Jen's been going, I think actually.
Well, see, if you're associated with a specific program, like Jen also sits on the culinary advisory board, so then she kind of does double duty. But if you have somebody who's in the automotive field, they can sit on that, and then the regional board as well.
Well, I'm going to use my gen book for that on that.
So we'll put Jen there.
Sounds good. She's gonna come in. There she is.
Right now, I think she's got one less than she started.
Oh, there you go.
Part of the curriculum committee,
I'd like to see us change that to two.
Yeah.
And the middle school stuff changes, it might be something that comes up sometime soon.
that makes sense to me. I can't see the reason why Bartlett would have any problem with that.
So then,
You know,
I don't really pick the name yet. I just said, like, to see it go. I don't necessarily want to be on it.
Does anybody want to replace Jess? I mean Jen, I'm sorry.
I would think, I'd rather not, I don't think I want to.
Well, Jen's already on there, so we'll
Yeah.
keep her, but Jess.
Jess as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bartlett Policy Committee, didn't even know I was on that. I can stay on that, I can try to start going to those when they're all.
All the policies that are,
They're kind of,
they develop here and then they go, and it's more procedures that are specific to each school, so.
and I don't really think it's relevant to Jackson as far as what Bartlett's doing until it is, and until it is, it's probably bigger than a committee position anyway, so let's scratch that one.
Scratch it totally,
Yeah.
and borrow the policy.
I will make sure we are obligated by contracts, tuition contracts, to have seats on there before.
Kevin, is there an example of policy that they've discussed recently?
They're working on a policy right now, and there's new civil rights bills that are going through legislation right now. And they do morph and change, and I know that Bartlett's kind of taking the lead on that one. And then it'll probably be bounced up to Conway as well. So they're looking at maybe making some changes to that specifically.
Could we put Scott on the committee for us?
Yeah.
Why don't we, unless somebody wants it, let's leave my name in it for now,
Yeah.
in case there's any problems with contracts or anything like that, so we don't cause more of a problem by dragging it up and then just leaving. Bartlett Technology Committee, Keith, assuming you still want to stay on that, it is relevant.
If somebody else wants to, they can, otherwise I'll stay on it.
There's also a district-wide technology committee that usually, again, if somebody's really into the technology and the things, that has representatives of all different boards. We'll make sure Keith's good with that.
You know what I was conflating before was the Personnel and Policy Committee, because sometimes they overlap a lot.
I would think it'd be off the person.
I was just going to say the same thing. I think the Personnel Committee, it should be committee members on that. Sure.
That would be Jim and Jess.
Unless Kate wants to jump on it.
Oh, I mean, different from the policy too.
Oh, no, I don't mean different from the policy, I don't think that matters too much, as much as just, I think the personnel committee should maybe be two different members now.
Yeah.
Because we made some pretty significant changes over the last year as far as personnel policy is concerned. And maybe it's a good idea to have two new heads go into the ring, so it's not just steamrolling down the path where two people are kind of driving the bus on that.
More checking.
So we can use that vote.
There's a gentleman over there, unless Kate can ask one of them has to volunteer, so.
I'll volunteer for personnel, unless you would like it.
I'm okay.
If she wants it, she can take it.
Yeah, I'm-
Otherwise, put Jen there.
So who do we have, Jess and Jess?
Jess and Jen.
And for Kate, your benefit, each staff member falls within personnel policies. So, for example, tonight you're going to see that illness bank,
Yep.
and then that gets developed and will go into their personnel policies. The other thing was, this year, there were job descriptions that morphed and changed. The personalized learning coach goes through the personnel committee, and then that gets recommended to the board for review, and then either gets adopted or not. With policy as well, there are always at least two readings of policies. The first time, very rarely does it get adopted right away, but there's usually a second reading as well.
That brings us to the library committee.
I don't need to be on that at all, if somebody else would like that. I can use my jet.
I mean, that hasn't really been one that's needed really much more.
No, we had a lot
So-
there when we were going next door and then the new one and all that we did.
So that's more of a figure than it is anything else probably. Does anybody want to jump on there? Put your name there because it probably won't ever have to meet for any reason, but just to put a name in there. Whitney is one that, if you still want it,
That's so,
otherwise put
it's
it.
actually a really nice group at Whitney Ward there, and they just got a new employee, so I'm happy to stay on it, but I'm on other committees, so you want to try it, it's a nice committee to be on.
It's probably the most work out of all of these.
But yeah, that's true, because it meets regularly, so,
And there's some history there too.
Yes, and there's a
So
lot of-
my recommendation would be,
wait, I want to use my key vote.
I would, let me get up to speed.
Okay, I'll stay up.
I'll present you, kid.
They're so lovely now, I'm happy to stay on, it's fine.
And you'll figure out the Whitney Center relationship to the school. It's, the building itself is technically under the school management, but the contract that we have with the Whitney Foundation actually makes it a little bit of a dual relationship, if you will. We've ultimately had the final say on what happens in the building, but it's really what happens here is dictated by that Whitney committee.
It's a very fine line of keeping both parties happy and following.
And that's really what the committee does, and that's why you kind of have to understand the history of it to really be effective there. Gail's done a really tremendously good job over the last 5 or 6 years managing that relationship and keeping that committee, I think, going well and rolling well, so thanks for that. Because it's not an easy thing to accomplish. And also keeping the school board happy, because it's been both directions for you. As you've got the Whitney people on one side and the school board on the other, you've actually done a great job of managing all that. Action plan, I am on that. I don't even know what that is.
We haven't done a formal action plan for a number of years. So,
Also something you tell very well. Yeah, that's what I love that bit. And I'm assuming that's where, if we actually set yearly goals, then there might be more of an action plan, and that's something that we should probably consider at some point in our events, and maybe bring, put on the agenda maybe for the next meeting as goals for the lesson.
Funny that you say that. We were having a conversation earlier today. So last year, there was a work session with the school board and staff and Yale, and we were talking today and saying how next month it would be excellent to talk about the strategies that we put into place this year. Gail put in place the indicators of success and what the evidence was to start moving towards next year. So I think in June, Gail will be.
right, because our school goals were built off of the work that we did, as well as the work we were doing at the SAU, so I kind of melded that together.
So we would need somebody else, I guess.
That's you, me. Cool. And honestly, the way most of these committees have actually functioned over the last few years is that if one of us can't make a certain date, somebody else jumps in and fills in the spot, so. That brings us to approving the minutes from May, April 16th and May 8th. Entertain a motion to do so.
So,
Well, we call it, the call for, so that's correct. The only call for the minutes first. Is there any changes or comments to the minutes?
Did you say this was for both sides?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got it. Will you second it? Jen said, yes, second it. That's a fair question. Feel good? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
standing for the session. It wasn't there.
That brings us to citizen comments, and I will say that our meeting was scheduled for 5:30 tonight. On the sign, it does say 6:30, so if anyone comes in at 6:30,
Will, a lot of comments.
go back to all the comments, a lot of people fill in the speech like we did before 6:30, and then it's on once to speak off. I am still here, so we'll be talking about that 6:30. Should we let the kids do their?
Unless they want to wait 30 minutes to see other people show up, will be the only thing I can say.
Are you talking to us?
Yeah.
We're,
Well, sort of.
we're still talking about what we're doing.
So
Because we thought we were starting at 6.
So our meeting was for 5:30, but the only unfortunate thing is that on the sign up front, it got posted for 6:30. So I don't know if there's going to be a lot more people that are going to come at 6:30. In which case,
Housing, we leave that too. That's probably what that is.
so maybe they won't. It's just
Or they think, great, we can.
We just want to give you guys an update. You know, we don't really have, we just have a list of, here's some.
why don't you guys can give us an update?
Are you ready?
Yeah.
I mean, are we at that point?
So we're almost to that point, but I was saying if you guys wanted to do it now, so unless there isn't any presentation.
It's usually on the, I don't have my glasses on, so I don't have any idea what anything says.
Business, which is actually
Coming up.
coming right up.
Yeah, we 5 minutes.
So, go ahead and get us, when you're at that point, then you
Okay.
say it. Then in case anybody else comes walking in,
I'll stop confusing the issue. For presentations, FYI, is there anything?
I don't have
Okay. Old business, early childhood.
I suggest we table that at the end of the meeting, in case people who saw the sign show us.
Pavilion update.
Pavilion. So, excuse my sunglasses, I forgot my glasses. So Jerry, you probably know this, we have a signed building permit. Finally, felt like it took forever. So we do have a signed building permit. And we've been talking about doing the raising on June 8th, on June 1st. But we've been talking with Curtis Milton, who's our expert timber framer, and he's not available on that date. So right now, the tentative plan is raising on June 8th, unless weather is bad, then June 15th. Everything should be ready to go, and Micah and then Ada have a whole bunch of things to tell you all the stuff we've been doing.
We received a $2,000 grant from the Quacket Foundation to help with the roofing materials. Austin and Zoe presented what we prepared. Fred Henry will do the excavation as soon as the footings come. The 4th and 5th graders ran an all-school meeting tool museum to to teach the tools of timber framing. Then each class observed Mr. Marshall and friends working. Miss Melissa, Stephanie, and Abby sold $485 worth of pegs on Saturday. Lucy's gave us a deal on hard hats. The hinges were fabricated by Alpine Machine and delivered.
We also went on a field trip to Garland Mill in Lancaster. It's a water-powered mill in operation since the 1850s. And they have a timber framing company. We saw them put together a scarf joint. It's a very complicated joint where it looks like a lightning bolt, and then there's this notch when they finally put it together, and you have these two no, that's not rectangle, it's triangle pieces, and you put them in and it fits perfectly. It's amazing, you can't even see the lines. Mr. Marshall, his cousin Chris Denning, Mr. Stokey, Sean Jusette, Jeremy Roberts have been working on the joinery for the pavilion. Our science topic is simple machines. Our essential question is, how do simple machines make the work of timber framing easier or less effort? Andy Narducci is working on the braces for the timber framing. And Kringles is selling the camp wood that we cut, and the Hancock Lumber donated the Simpson straps.
So we have been busy. So a lot of that is adult kind of stuff, but a ton of it is student stuff connected in a lot of different ways. So these guys wrote the material for the Pequawket grant. Then they went away to Ferry Beach, and 2 5th graders went and presented to the Pequawket Foundation, which was a lot of fun because these guys had already presented you presented at the Rotary.
Yeah, we presented.
So there's a lot of things going on. So that our last integrated unit of the year is Simple Machines. So we've been, we developed the essential question around that, and the kids started off with learning about the tools, and then when the 6th graders were at Ferry Beach, the 4th and 5th graders presented how the tools worked to the K1, 2, 3 kids, and then the kids all had an opportunity to go outside and see those tools being used. So one thing that didn't make the list is Mr. Stokey's has already also gotten for us granite headers between the post and the cement footings. We're just waiting to figure out when the cement footings will be here, and then Fred's going to excavate and get those in. That's where we are.
Like, how much did you say you raised in selling bags?
Miss Melissa, Stephanie, and Abby sold $485.
Wow, just on Saturday?
It just has Saturday at the post
And then
office.
an hour and a half.
Yeah, in an hour and a half. Yeah.
How many more you got?
Oh my God. Yeah, there's 93.
93 bags.
Yeah, that they sold. I don't know how many there are left, but the way that works is you make a donation of, we suggest a $10 donation. You get to put your name on the peg, and then for eternity you'll be holding up the building. It's kind of a cool thing.
I did hear from a number of people in the community how cool they thought selling bags was and what a great.
Yeah.
I got 2 in the library and 2 in the pavilion now.
Yeah, there you go.
You're gonna have everything. Joan, you mentioned last year that you might be inviting the last year's 6th graders, this year's 7th graders for the raising.
Yeah, we had a conversation. I had a conversation with Joanna about that, and we're just going to nail down the dates to make sure that we didn't invite them and have it all planned for the 1st, and then not have it on the 1st. But yeah, so I've already talked with Joanna about that, and hopefully they'll be able to come out of school on that day, come over for at least part of the day. So yeah, we have talked about that. Thanks.
The 15th, I believe, they're on 15th.
Yeah, there were a couple days. I have all of those, like what they're doing at the end of the year. Joe sent me a big long email.
Yeah, and I wouldn't expect you guys to accommodate your schedule for them.
But yeah.
We're going to have somebody.
When they're going to pull on school that day, they don't get crossed by that and say, I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
Any other questions? That's good. Nice.
Thanks for that.
Thank you.
KHS program studies.
For those that came in, we moved A to the end because the summer was not accurate. So the preschool will move to the end so that if people showed up, so we have not covered it.
Yeah, our meeting is scheduled for 5:30, but unfortunately the sign up front got posted for 6:30, so I don't know if I was confused by
It was on E-News for 6:30 as well.
It was on the news for 6:30.
So did this start at 5:30?
Yeah, well, our meeting started at 5:30 to go over committee assignments. Our regular meeting started 5 minutes ago, basically, but so we were delaying that early childhood ed update for later in the meeting until more people show up in case of that. But I did skip over citizen comments while no one's here. And I said when people start to show up, I would go back to citizen comments. So we haven't talked about early childhood yet, but if there are any citizen comments at this point, I've opened the floor to them.
Yeah, I guess I was just frustrated with the mix-up on the times with e-news. The town website says something different, and last meeting, with the mix-up between the location made it difficult for the elderly person trying to walk between buildings. It hasn't been very confusing to get announcements.
So we'll go back to that and our old business, we'll get through some others, any instructional issues?
Yeah.
Brings us to personnel actions. First up, do we have to do that?
No, we didn't see it. I would do that, yeah.
So we'll consider a motion to accept with regret the resignation of Ann Bennett effective June 30th, 2018. So moved. Ann's been a part of the school for a long time, and I'm hoping she still will continue to be a part of the school to some degree. I think we're actually lucky to have her for the past few years, because she was talking about retiring a few years ago. So we got a few bonus years, and we really would like to thank Ann for everything that she's done for the school. She's been really a very important part of it.
She has given us a lot, and I think she is willing and able to help in transition for next year. So I'll be putting together with her with that plan for some hours to support the transition to a new person going into next year. So it will be seamless as far as our technology and testing schedules and things like that.
Yes. All those in favor? Entertain a motion for the election of Ashley Nash as summer counselor. So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor? Unanimous.
And just an FYI, we typically hire two. I have another council that will be interviewed next month. However, they hadn't started their background check, and we weren't able to turn it forward until we did that.
That's good. Next up is to consider the first reading of the personnel policies for the principal. I entertain a motion to approve these policies after the first reading. So moved. I'll second. No, I think we're just to approve them on the first reading. This was being recommended, right?
If there are no changes.
So the motion was to approve them on the first reading. So if you want to make sure you...
I'm good with it, because I reserve that committee, unless something got changed in what we
Right, we just, no, so the motion was to actually approve them on the first reading. So we'll go through the first reading now, and if you don't want to approve them, then make a report for it. Kevin, I'll probably let you run through this, what the changes were to it.
Sure. So there were parts of the position that were covered under non-contracted personnel, which means the teaching staff, and then there were some that were for the administration. So went through a process of really separating out those two pieces. Which benefits would go to the principal? Is it under the teachers or is it under administration? So what this really did was cleaned up a number of those pieces related to it, with some changes to, some minor changes to some of the pieces. But it really, the biggest thing was it cleaned up the difference between the two, so that the principal of Jackson would follow this document here and not the teacher's contract, because there are some differences related to retirement and health insurance and those type of things.
Do you guys want me to read the whole policy or?
No, my packet arrived late, so I didn't chance to go through it, so I would abstain from the vote. And I think it looks, on first reading, it looks good, but I would not vote in favor of it tonight because I haven't had a chance to really look over it. So just, that's why.
Yeah.
If they don't do the same mistake with this, I don't think.
I read over it before coming here, and then read the principal's policy before, it seemed really reasonable.
So you ready to vote? You're good to go.
Yeah.
I guess there's no more questions or comments. All those in favor? Noes?
That's for first reading or for adopting?
That's just for adopting policy on first reading. Abstentions? Or is it a present vote?
Generally, these guys.
What? To actually approve, so you just want to go through the first reading?
Yeah.
So I guess I would like a motion just to consider the first reading of the blank language for contracted and non-contracted personnel.
So,
It's really just, I guess, for discussion purposes.
so yeah, I got some things.
So just to clarify, so this session has been one we've been reviewing for a little while, and typically, first readings, we actually will approve policy unless they've been kind of already had a previous first reading, like with the principal's contract. It's not the first time we've actually seen it. We didn't really make any major changes from the last time we saw it. But for instance, like this motion was just to consider the first reading, which is really doing nothing more than bringing it up for discussion under Robert's rules, I guess. So we're not really considering anything. We don't really have to approve anything. We don't really need to vote on the considered reading. If you want to vote to approve this, then someone would have to make a motion to actually approve the policy. Just clarify the differences between the two. And so if we voted yes to this, we would just be forwarding it to consider either tonight after we've gone through the first reading or for another evening. So let's just see what the conversation goes, I guess, and go from there.
Hi. And if I could just clarify, I think this has gone on a long time, and this contract is almost exactly the same as the teachers. I have been operating under that contract for 10 years, and so this was just separating me out from the teachers. So if I could ask those of you who weren't familiar with that to compare what I was hired under in that particular contract as compared to this one, you can see that they're pretty much mirror images of them. So it's not above and beyond.
we already voted for it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're
But you're right, though. That's kind of why we had done it under the first reading. Because we wanted to get, this has been something that, again, has been going on for too long, actually. So
Yeah.
don't apologize. Again, it should be us apologize to you. So,
We did move it pretty quick.
so back to the illness thing. Keith, did you want?
Yeah, I got a few things I want to say. Second line says the board will provide initial 10. Thought we already did that.
No, you haven't adopted anything.
Well, didn't we do it off the cuff already?
That's the
So
situation.
didn't we already give our 10 up?
No.
You can't.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
So that was a one-time thing, doesn't count towards this?
That was
That's correct.
So this is gonna be a separate.
Yeah, we should really
Second,
refrain from saying.
So that'll be 20 days. Didn't we already do 10?
No, this will be.
This is the actual policy.
Okay, so let me back up for a second then. So when you guys came to us and asked us for those, that was just the staff members giving up theirs, we didn't give anything yet?
That's correct.
Okay.
Correct. So just for clarification, currently there is no sick bank. So when you're hired initially, you get, what, 12, 13 days? So if you're a new employee and you have a catastrophic illness, the really is, you covered by FMLA, but so what this does is establishes an illness bank. So as an employee, you can donate a day a year toward that illness bank. And then should somebody need extended days, they can apply to a committee for approval. And as Keith was saying, the language talks about establishing 10-day contribution right off the bat.
Is that 10 days to the staff as a whole? Or 10 days?
We're gonna get 10, and then they'll each put one. Yeah.
There's such a small staff, so even if they started next year, you might only have five days or 6.
No, we put 10 in.
Right. And then after that, it'd be voluntary, so.
And one staff member could take all 100 days if that's approved by that committee appointed by Gail.
Yeah, I know in different locations, we have small staff, and our staff won't approve necessarily that big at any one time. People can
Come back and say.
10 and 15 days, and then come back, give an update.
And is this something that if I'm a teacher at the end of the year and I have 7 days left, I add?
You do it at the beginning of the year,
Okay.
so in September, a form would go up, and it would request, Kevin, do you want to donate a day to the sick bank? So instead of 13 days, I would have 12 left, and one would go into the bank. And if it's a half-time person, it would be prorated that way, so it would be a half day as well. And then they could withdraw that as well.
That was my next question, is I would like it to stipulate in the current year. So must have donated a day to the illness bank in the current year. Are we gonna let people join that 1 year and skip 3 years and then jump right back in without donating any? Are they in forever once they've donated one?
And that would be up to the committee to decide.
I mean, as a school board member, I'm not okay with policy that says you can put one in once and never again for 10 years, and still be.
They may not have days though, so if God forbid I were a person and I exhausted all my sick days and I used 20, the next year I would have 0. So I would be very careful about,
Why would you do 0?
because if
You
I
can use
exhaust,
them from the next year?
no, comes July, well, comes September 1st the following year.
Just to clarify, I'm on the committee in the SAU, so at the turn of the next year, you do have 13 days put back in if you're a full-time employee.
Yes, that's so you have.
And each of our groups, because they're not all unions, have illness leave bank policies, and then the committee develops the procedures. I feel really confident about our procedures because we've worked a lot and received a lot of legal input so that it's fair, equitable, and consistent. So I think
I'd rather
today,
do it in the current year. You know, I don't want to see it in the situation, somebody donates one and then done for a couple of years, and then they got to come ask.
Then they have to go to the committee.
I know.
The committee could then
Okay,
say,
you're right, there's a, but you want to put anybody in that position. Because then they're gonna feel bad, they're probably gonna quit, you know, and you
I get what you're saying.
or choose it, but you're gonna know about it.
And yes, I think micromanaging from the board, and you don't really want to do that, particularly in this situation.
Well,
But
the
the
board's
board's
going in, and we're just letting the committee do their thing, we're just giving them guidelines.
and I understand that, but
Do we have policies in the works for this?
the board's exposure is how much are we willing to expose the board of the town to costs associated with this? And we can do that to the individual employee anyway. This doesn't add to our exposure there. This is just how the employees choose to use what's their benefit. Probably not, Well, what I don't want to see is the board micromanaging something where we're actually getting involved in something that can actually cause more tension in the staff and more tension between the staff and the board. I think we're better off leaving it in the hands of a committee that's nothing to really do with the school board in that situation, myself.
I get that totally, but I'm always about trying to prevent situations that could happen, and that's why I'm always thinking from that point
You
of view.
can think that, you can get to the point where you kill this and it doesn't work, and I hear what you're saying, I just disagree with you, and I'm ready to move on with it as it is. We're deciding is, do we want to change subtle language in here so that it ties our hands a little bit more into how they can use the benefit?
Because now you have to donate to participate.
You don't have to do it, if you want to
You don't
participate.
want to say anything.
But if you're going to participate using the thing, you have to participate and donate.
Yeah.
Then it wouldn't be voluntary.
What do you mean?
If you're,
Well, I would volunteer, but the way I would put it is a year thing. You want to pull out, pull out.
but you're taking the, I guess, I'm just playing the other side of it, that, again, if I'm a young person with new kids and I get hired here, I'm gonna guard those sick days really close.
If that's the only issue we have with what we've done, I'll probably go for it, but I would just say one more thing on that. We're going to put intent, right? We said we're going to put intent to start, and staff, how many full-time staff we have? 5, 6 full-time staff? And let's say that 8 to 10 more come in. We prove this first year it kicks off, we 8 to 10. That first year, if somebody needs 15 left, there's at least 5 left. We're not, I remember, we don't have 40 people. I guess is the thing. We almost kind of have to keep people, we want people to keep them in, otherwise it's not going to be any there. But I think,
So we have 13 people in the SAU9 office. Not everyone contributes. One of our procedures is you have to contribute within the year, in the beginning of the year, July 1st.
That's what I was just
July, in order to access it for the year. Some years we have 170 days in the sick bank. Other years we've had.
So you do have that policy?
Yes,
You
we've had catastrophic events and we've had to look at multiple people, and it's a hard conversation that is part of our responsibility as the office committee membership. And we've split it up so that we can save for others in the event and also support each
but
other.
it is part of your policy. If you want to come and ask for it this year, you would have had to do it.
We do have that in our procedure, not in our policy, in our procedures.
You committee procedure.
Procedures that go with our policy.
The committee
The committee developed.
has that procedure.
Yeah, and then we gave it to the staff. And if we update it, we updated it the beginning of July, end of June, beginning of July, and as soon as everyone's days roll over, they get a letter, a note, they can sign off, I want to donate, I don't want to donate, and then it's taken out and moved to the bank through payroll.
Does your policy mirror this one?
It's similar, yes.
It's separate. Or that's not.
No, it's, I think it's written just, I'd have to look at it.
So you're going to tell me as far as your committee goes, if I donated one in the last 5 years in a row this year, I wouldn't be allowed to come ask for it this year? What is? How do
You could
break it?
ask, but you probably wouldn't proceed.
Let me see.
And we have consistency on our committee. It's not a fun thing to be on, right? Yeah, but it's important.
But that's not in the hands of the committee, the policy from the SB9 is similar to this one.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. No, I know, that's what I was getting at. So there is somebody who will do what I just said. That's what I was getting at. Trying to make myself more comfortable with it.
Three-person.
So there is other people that will say no, if the person is going that year.
Well, all I'm saying is that shouldn't be us. That should be the committee. Because it's,
Well, the only thing is,
But under this, to be clear, they could also make the decision to go ahead and do that, and we're leaving that to them if we're voting for this. So,
yeah, I would just hope our committee procedures would be.
And it's really about that long-term illness injury. It's not about, I've used my 13 days again for the third year in a row and I have the flu. Well, not good planning, right? It's about, we have a significant diagnosis and I need to be with the family member. We're doing the best we can. we need a little bit of help here.
Yeah, I mean, if they're showing up past completely space, something's not catastrophically wrong, right?
Correct.
So,
Can I do one thing, something when I should?
Go ahead.
I think we should have, and maybe there is on the sign up form, I've never seen what the form looks like when you decide to sign up, to make sure that they know that you can't, it's not like their own bank, you can't take these back later. I don't know if that's anywhere. Where is it? I think that should be clear as day. That's a good point, you don't get back.
and I'll know you leave it, you can ask for them.
I don't know that, but you can't say, oh, I'm going to give my notice and quit this year, you know what, I put 2 in, I want to take those back, and then use my name, my sick days, just some way to make it clear. And again, that could simply be on the form that you, like I said, you sign to say, I want to participate or not. But maybe that's it.
Well, it's his first reading, so
Yeah.
we can make that, you know,
And then the last thing I had is one that you weren't on, Jerry. Last paragraph, Douglas Bank shall be administered by a committee of 3 staff members appointed by the principal. I know you said we should do it, and we should let the committee do it on their own, but I still think school board should have final approval. Come in recommended by the committee, but we approve this. Again, I'm not totally sold on that.
you need to be careful of HIPAA laws and giving information that you may not be privy to. I would just be careful, have a caution board.
I'd also be concerned about the logistics of that and being able to actually use it, because we only meet month to month, and, you know, what if we can't meet? I mean, we could have an emergency meeting, I guess, but that's kind of the tough sell for an emergency meeting too. I mean,
I just think it's fair because we're giving somebody else the power to make decisions that we were elected to make. That's where I just say we should,
But
we don't need to.
we've made those decisions in creating that benefit for our employees, and so that's already established and known. How it's being used it's not even giving them all the flexibility in the world to use it, it's giving them a limited flexibility to use it the way that the employees are choosing to use it voluntarily. I don't know that they need more management beyond it. I think that you can be opposed to having an illness bank philosophically because it does have the potential for exposing the town to more costs that it might not otherwise. And I think for that reason you can be opposed to it. And if you're opposed to it, I think that's fine. I'm not, I'm in favor of it.
I'm not opposed to it.
But trying to
I was more just thinking.
manage down to the point where we can't agree to have a policy is effectively doing that.
And I just thought it would show up on our meeting on number 7, consider personnel actions. 7E would be request to remove 10 days from illness time. Do we go early now? I'm not saying I want all the details, if this person really sick, you know, should I go check this out? Well, that's not-
what if that happens 3 weeks before a meeting? They have to wait 3 weeks to use them?
Does it usually come up like that quick and they need within days?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the first reading, maybe we can, could we get a copy of the policies just to educate the board? Okay, and then maybe we can put it on the agenda for next month. I do have a question about the accumulation, so we put in the initial 10. Let's say we get to 100. You know, I know it's not gonna happen, it's just.
No,
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm reading it correctly, and that's, it just is that there's no rollover past that. But it will roll over year to year. So if we have 10 this year and
Well, that's actually the point too. So what if it doesn't get to the 100? And then there's a new employee that starts.
They have their 12, 13 days.
So but can they give one to make it 101 so they can not participate? So they can't participate?
Well, they can participate.
That's like a
Depending
committee.
on your committee decision.
Even though they didn't put any in, the committee could still give them some?
so we'll have some room for them to interpret the situation. Okay.
So we're ready to move on to this one?
Yes.
So we'll put it on the agenda for next meeting.
So you move it
Second reading will be next meeting.
with this.
And I guess,
I don't know if we change it or not. I think it's,
Well, the only change we want to see is clarification on the sign-up forms.
Yeah.
Well, then I also took Keith's, the donation is not reimbursable, so you can't withdraw your own days.
I do think
that's good.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, that sounds good.
People rolling in, I do apologize for the mix-up in the posting of the time for the
No,
meeting.
it's at 6:30 on the sign.
I'm saying the 6:30, but
Yeah.
forms and the things at 5:30, and I don't know, I guess fancy we should.
Being used at 6:30.
We see it there when it's done.
So,
At least at the end of the meeting.
again, I apologize for the misunderstanding of how we posted the timing. The way we set the time and date for our meetings in the agenda, so last meeting we did establish a 5:30 time, which is half hour before our 6-hour time, because what we did in the first half hour was we went through and established our committees, our subcommittees on the board, so that's what we did for the first half hour. After that, I did say that we would wait until at least 6:30 to discuss the early childhood education updates. We haven't discussed that on the agenda yet. I also said that as people arrive, I would open the floor back to citizen comments as people came in to give people a chance to do that. So at this point, again, I will open up the floor to citizen comments if anybody has anything to say at this time. After that, we will probably go back to early childhood development and then go on to business affairs after that. So are there any citizen comments? Sarah?
So in other words, in order for us to know what took place in 7, 8, B, or C, we have to, and actually most of D for me, we have to go to Jackson Place to see what took place, what the conversations were.
Correct.
Because I had no idea what you were just talking about when you were talking about illness bank and all this. And the piece of paper that you have right now that you're going to, that you just looked at, which I guess is the first reading of this number D, will that be something that you will have available for citizens to see?
Yes, as it always is.
And, did anybody have any question about C? Because I have no idea. What did you,
Well, so, I mean,
did you make
we
a
don't open up the
decision
floor
on?
to questions on things that are agenda necessarily, and these aren't actually things that we actually would ordinarily open up to the floor for comments and discussions. These are things for the board's business, and these are the first reasons of these things we can go on.
Oh, okay, so everything that you've done here is first readings and will be discussed at another meeting? They weren't voted on?
Correct.
Okay.
So,
A, B, C, the voting.
A, B, and C have been voted on and put to the polls. C, the personnel policies for the principal, has been something we've been discussing for almost 2 years now. And has been on the table for a while, so that information has been out there and been discussed pretty thoroughly. And the other things are regular business as they come up. We skipped the early childhood development one because of the mix-up in the timing, and moved on to those other things. Any further citizen comments?
I'd like to address it, so this is not the preschool, I wanted to address the high school. And I see on here the KHS Program of Studies, and it really doesn't have to do with Program of Studies as much as it does. Is Jackson, how long more is the bond in place with Kennett? Is that? How many?
6.
6 ways to make a decision and 9 altogether.
You have to make a decision
And 3.
3 more.
In 3 more years. As a school board and as a town, and I remember very well from when my kids were here, there's a lot of focus on the grammar school, less so on the middle school, and very little on high school. And by the time, my kids will be out of there in a year, 1 and 2 years. But I think there should be more focus on the high school, and I know there's a number of us here who have kids in high school, and I think maybe even a committee formed to look at what's going on at Kennett, what we think of the education, what we think of the teacher, this teacher turnover, and that parents who have younger children I think really need to be aware of what's going on there, focused on it, and especially as we move towards re-upping a contract with the high school, what Jackson's stake is in that, and what that high school looks like. There's a lot of money going in here, and over there we're spending a lot of money, but what are we getting for it? I know my kids, there's a lot of subs. There's, they get great education here, they get good education there, but I see this pattern, and it will happen. I see it happening in Bartlett too. A lot of the older teachers leaving who are getting paid really well, who, had a real stake in it. Now you hire younger people, they're not getting paid very much. They're going to be moving along. So it's like, what are we creating? And I think we need to take a really good look at it.
So it is something we talked about, and it's almost like we're jockeying in a position right now, waiting for the right time. I think we kind of all said within the next year, and we've talked to Barbara about it before.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely something we need to keep it getting ready.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually, this is why KHS Program Studies is actually on our agenda under old business, because it does go beyond just what the program of studies is, but that's kind of what drove the idea of really what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
Particularly as it pertains to the high school anyway. I would add to it though that the SAU9 board, I think, is functioning pretty well, and really is participating in that would really be where, as a board, we would be most effective, I think, in really addressing those issues. I mean, we can have our own opinions as Jackson want to drive issues that we can. It really probably wouldn't go very far. And when I say the SAU9 board is functioning really well, I think it's functioning well from the standpoint of it really functions more as a board separate than the towns. In other words, it's not Conway driving the agenda there, it's not Bartlett driving the agenda there. It's really kind of the whole board. And Scott, you're looking at me kind of evilly, like you might disagree with me. Right, it's hard tonight. But no, it's just Scott.
He's baiting me again.
But I think that Tish, you've got an idea there as far as a committee is concerned, and maybe that's something that we should consider as something that is actually something I did want to talk to Bartlett about last time. I never really brought it up, was maybe we should have a joint committee where we kind of address and stay focused on the program studies and what's going on there, just so that we can keep, we should at least do it as Jackson, but that's one area where we work with Bartlett. It might make sense to do that, to keep a good eye on what's going on there for the program studies. And then it really comes down to also helping our parents from this town. How, it's always scary and confusing trying to get the classes that you want and all that. And sometimes it's just misunderstanding of when you're supposed to do it, how you're supposed to do it. And that's why that's on there. So I think maybe if we keep it on there for next meeting and try and discuss it a little bit more there and flush it out a little better, and we can get some of the things. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I happened to attend the Conway District, I don't know, what do you call that?
SU9 board.
SU9 board. And in actuality, there were only 2 members from Jackson. There weren't the whole board there. So you're saying that, it's important, but in representation, I only saw 2 of you.
That doesn't reflect how our representation, our representation on that board is, whether it's 1 member or 5, it's the exact same representation. So it doesn't matter how many of us go there.
Well, it does to me, because I think I've got 5 different personalities and different people that might pick something up and come back to us as parents and taxpayers and tell us something.
I understand what you're saying, but that's not necessarily how the SAU9 board functions. It's not the function of the SAU9 board. It's a little bit different than that. And we have full representation by having a school in our district. That's what establishes our representation. So whether it's 1 or 5 of us there, that representation doesn't change.
Correct. I don't think we can have all 5 vote of those issues. We can.
Sure.
So it's the executive one.
And kind of what I meant by that, Scott, like you said, is that it doesn't really, the board isn't really functioning as one town representing one over the other. It really kind of, I think, functions as a pretty good board where the agendas and discussions happen more as an SAU9 board than they do individual towns speaking individually in the SAU9 board. Scott?
The area joint boards, when the SU9 13, when the program of studies, and three people per town, correct? You get appointments per town. That's a good thing to be on. Program of studies is killer, so everyone gets to say what they want and goes through it. What's this thick? It's not, it's
Kevin had just
it's impressive.
reiterated that and emphasized that when we were going over our committee assignments earlier. We'll try to continue with that.
If I can just amend for a second. Tish, I hope you also always feel welcome to come to board meetings to raise issues because, I mean, really, I have to give kudos to Keith because well over a year ago, he reminded us all that we should be paying attention to the middle school and high school as much as we pay attention to the grammar school. And I think that there's been an effort on our part to do that. We have board members now that have kids that are going into higher grades and things like that, but we want to hear about those things, whether we're on a committee or not. And a number of issues have been brought to us. Just because we don't address everything in a meeting here does not mean we're not thinking about them or following up on things or talking about them. And that kind of leads me into what I wanted to say to Sarah, which is that I'm not, we were just talking about this, I'm not actually on that committee to go to those meetings, but I try to go to those meetings. But just because you don't see us at one of those meetings doesn't mean that we're not getting information, that we're not talking to people. You can ask Pam and Kevin, there's a number of phone calls these guys get where we're like, can you fill me in because I had a conflict or I had to do this, right? Because this is a piece of our lives. So we try to stay on top of everything. And we also try to support each other and say, oh, well, you're a facilities guy, so what do you need there? So just please remember that because we are trying to juggle a lot. If you look at all the committees and all the work we have to do, it's not that we don't care, it's not that we don't want to know, it's that we can't be everywhere all the time.
Any more comments? When we jump into the early childhood education day. That brings us to our May 8th meeting and the committee members. So I think tonight we're going to actually form that committee.
So can I just jump in and clarify for a minute?
Sure. What do we want to do this in?
Sorry?
What do we want to do this in?
I am like lost to say, I don't know what to say.
And maybe you can orient me, because one, my apologies, I was not able to be at that meeting, which I did want to be at, but I think there's some confusion. Just having read the minutes and talked with folks, so maybe we can just clarify for our board what actually is happening, because I just would like to know. So
I didn't think that we agreed on having a committee, number one, and number two, we got the minutes. It said the same thing too, so that's why I skipped over when I saw that reading that on the minutes. Section 5, what is that? Section 5, if committee, that there were members in jail. I was the person that was still going to talk about that tonight.
Can I ask, so in the 4 years this has been being talked about, as I understand it, how many committees have there been? Was it just last year there was a committee?
no, so there was a different committee between, we were asked to look at it. We formed a committee with Bart to look at it overall. That's what we did. A proposal went to that board and it was rejected. So then we pulled back. Bart looked at it. We moved to a city. Jackson looked at it on our own. We looked at it for over a year. And then that came forward. And at the time, the location was not available. We got the church. We weren't ready to make a decision. So we actually looked at it. We continued to look at it. And then it came up for the vote that you were privy to. So it's been ongoing for several years. Two long-term committees. So.
I'm against the committee, very, very strong. I was not against it the first time. I think it was awesome. We needed to know lots of different things. And now as elected board members, I think it's in our laps now to make the decision. We have all the information. We have community information more than the only thing we need is different if we have another one of these is if somebody can change their mind. And I feel like us as an elected board, we have all the information we need, and if there is a piece missing, it needs to come from here so you can add in the principle. And that's how I feel.
I would jump on that, and I do agree with Keith. I feel like there has been a lot of work done, not just on the committee that I worked on. I mean, there's been work before I came on, and then the Bartlett committee, this one. I think we have looked at things. Maybe we need to look at logistics. And again, I don't want to open up something that you guys make a decision on, but just having read the minutes and looked at kind of what's followed, the questions have been answered in my mind as far as moving forward. The logistics, I think we do need to answer some questions. I don't know if we need a committee to turn over all the rocks that we already turned over. So I would be against the committee to start sort of at that beginning to look at all of this. If there are specific questions like, okay, the basement's not an option, where would you put it? I think it is time for us to just say between us, what are we voting for, we're putting it forward, and if we're going to put it forward. To be honest, I haven't heard new arguments or new information come forward in the past 6 to 8 to 10 months. So if there is new information, I would love to hear it personally as one member that votes on this. But I have not heard that. It seems to be a rehash of the same arguments. And,
So I would say, so we have the workshop.
Right.
And whatever the topic of the workshop is, whatever the issue that the workshop is discussing, in my mind, the proper process for any board isn't to make a decision at the workshop, is to have a discussion and come up with plans and goals and things to accomplish. And that's kind of what the workshop was about. We did not form a committee at that workshop, because to me that's not the function of a workshop. The idea was to put the information out there, and then if people were going to be on that committee, and it came up with goals for a committee to look into, and that was the idea behind it. So to me, you would never form a committee in a workshop. If the board chooses to form a committee, the board can choose to do so. If we don't choose to form a committee, we can not choose to do so. So in order for us to really form a committee at this point, someone would have to make a motion to have a committee. And if we did that, we established at the workshop what the goals for that committee would be. So that to me is what happened at the workshop. Tonight is to decide whether we actually move ahead with having a committee or not. In regards to specifically the early childhood education committee, I agree with both of you that I don't need to see more information. I don't have a need for a committee, but I did hear from the community people that are advocates for the preschool, and also people who aren't advocates of the preschool, wanting to have a part of the process still and wanting to participate in it. And that would be the only reason why I might be in favor of a committee, because it gives people outside of this board the ability to work through that process.
I think we've given everybody plenty of opportunity to do so, though.
Yeah, I think I would counter that by saying we had a process where we had, we've got at least one member here, we had a committee that did not agree. That was on the entire spectrum, for it, against it. And we did hash out all of those things. We had multiple public hearings or listening posts. We had surveys. We've had how many school board meetings since we started where people could come and voice their opinions. We've had emails to us. We have letters to the editor. So from that point, I would say, how much do we do? How far do we go? When in fact, I think Tish is raising something very important, which is that we have a lot of other pressing matters to get to catch ourselves up on and educate ourselves on. 3 years is not that far away. And from my perspective, I think we do need to make a decision about what we will do next budget season with the early education piece. But we also need to start to look at some of these other things. And there's only so much time. So I'm not saying I will put in the time. What I'm saying is that how do we prioritize it effectively? So if there are folks that want to continue to be part of the process, I guess what I'm asking is what is the point of that at this point?
I think it's just the reason why that question's out there, and what kind of goes back to what Keith said, is that, and at least the board, we haven't really made a decision yet.
Right.
Are we as a board thinking that we're going to present preschool next year again? Meaning,
I think we have more to talk about. I don't think it's whatever.
well, so maybe we have more to talk about, and maybe that's the problem. It's like, are we going to be in favor, or are we going to advocate for a preschool? And if we do, what does it look like? Does it look like the same thing? We haven't even really decided about that. So maybe we put the cart before the horse a little bit in forming committee, where we haven't even decided whether we're going to have a preschool or not.
I'm not.
And until we do, then
I would suggest that we go on the fifth member tonight. If we did, I was going to suggest we sit until 10 o'clock tonight if we had to, and make a decision on what we're doing. So maybe we try, instead of putting it on an agenda for a June meeting, let's make a special meeting. And the only thing that will be on the agenda is number 1, call to order. Number 2, preschool. Notice this is the comments till the end. We have our talk, we make our decisions, we've got the information, and then then we decided, that's what we decided. What are we doing? And we decided the whole plan. We've got all the information we need to make that decision. Yes, I know the regulation,
I mean, I think we have an obligation to move forward with a plan for preschool. So I would put a motion forward that we need to put a plan forward for the next budget season to have a preschool option for our Jackson students.
And I think all five of us are for, in some degree, are for preschool. We just have specific ideas of how that needs to look.
You have a motion on the floor. In your motion, Jess, point of order, sorry, Mr. Chair.
It's to move forward with a proposal for a public preschool for the 2019-2020 school year. Is that right?
Correct.
I was flying, oh my goodness. Yeah.
Second, right? Okay, now, there you go.
Thanks, Kevin. Which brings us back to, again, why we were talking about forming a committee and eventually assigned goals was to help us with the question of, okay, we're going to propose preschool. Let's say we vote in favor of this. Now, what's the next step? Is the next step to present the same plan that we had last year, or is it to answer the questions that we established at the workshop or the committee can answer?
I think we have that, it's already, there was a vote on it. So we as a board never have sat down, five of us yet, and actually said, okay, this plan got rejected. Where are we going from here? We never had that discussion.
And I will say, just from my view, which is unfortunate in that I was able to sit in all these meetings, I think there's some logistics we need to work out. I don't think there's much more we could do, because when we looked at, do we go for a full day? That, we tried to balance the costs of that preschool with the benefits that it would have and how it would work with the obligations we have for 3-year-olds who have special needs and above. So I think all those questions have been answered. Had they been answered with the five of us? Maybe not. So I agree with Keith that, maybe we just need to sit down and, we can answer those questions, because I don't think there are a ton of other logistics we can really change.
So, is there any more discussion about what the motion is?
The motion was that we decided we were for going forward with the proposal, which is a little scary.
Right.
Because what if we can't? We don't know. Then we're going to agree.
There hasn't been a proposal put on the table, so all we're doing is voting the words.
So what are we actually voting on?
You're voting on taking an action moving preschool forward.
Moving preschool forward. What I'd like to do is, let's take the proposal we had and look at it and say, is this something that we can work with, or do we have? I don't see how you're coming up with a new proposal for preschool if we're in fact in favor of it. There's just not that much. There's just not that much wiggle room. We don't have a lot of space that's negotiable. We don't have a lot of money that's negotiable. We don't have a lot of time that's negotiable. So from this seat, I think that we need to look at that proposal. I think we need to say, is there anything viable in it? I think there is. If there's something, we have asked over and over, if someone has something better, if there's a better way to do it, do it. No one has come forward to do that.
Which I was under the understanding that that's why we had the May 8th workshop, was to discuss that, and the result of that was that we would have a committee look into I think it was 5 points that we were going to have them look at. One of them was, okay, the library is no longer in the basement. One was to look at offering only to 4-year-olds, having a 4-year-old kindergarten set up, and then a 1-2 classroom, a 2-3 classroom, and a 5-6 classroom. That's what the committee was going to look at, and was it to look into space anywhere else? I think it was just, what were the
I mean, I think that's part of the problem. The question was
that we were already talking, like the space thing was like, do we really go back and talk about that again?
And I thought that's what was established at the committee. So I guess short of having a committee do that, your suggestion the process should just be that we just meet again and hash things out?
I would think that if we didn't have the five of us yet. There was also an agenda that day, and I don't want to throw us all under the bus, but I will. But the agenda started with the first topic was determine whether to move forward with a public preschool. That was the first part. The second part was if yes, and we had all of these things we were going to do. Nowhere on there did it say if no, and I just feel like we didn't.
Well, because
the meeting was pretty
we turn our business to other things.
So we're just revisiting the same question then, which we're redoing as much as we want to.
Absolutely, just to clarify, we
Yes.
did vote on that night, and that's why we went to the next question.
Which I guess was really more process for that meeting to see whether we do that or not. but-
And again, I haven't been there, which I'm sorry about maybe, I think we need to be the committee at this point. Let's just get the answers and move on instead of more public discussions, more surveys, things like that. I think, let's get the information and just decide whether it's viable or not.
I mean, if Jay was here, I would have said, let's continue this conversation right now. Like I said, but this is the third person, I don't know, I think we need, yeah, I can feel what you say, there is not what we had the other one for, but I thought it was, but I don't believe it turned out that way.
Kate, did you have anything that you want to add?
I just feel like all the questions are the same questions. So I've only been listening to this and part of this conversation for a year. But it feels like the no new information for the last 8 months or so feels pertinent. And having all of the questions that were brought up, you know, at all of the sit-ins, all the kind of meetings, all the listening posts, the night of the vote, like all of that conversation, the questions are all really clear, and being able to answer exactly where everything's going to take place, how special ed kids are going to get their services met, exactly what it looks like for every kid, what it looks like if there isn't a preschooler in Jackson for 1 year. All of those questions, I think, can be answered based on the feeling of everyone in the community who's been voicing their opinion for however many years in the last year that I've been part of the conversation. I think that it's a really nice idea to have 5 people hash out everything on the table and come out with a really, really nice, very solid plan that then gets put towards the community in a thoughtful, everything's been answered kind of way.
So are we ready to vote on the motion?
Yeah, you should make that motion. I really know the semantics on it,
Well, you can-
I'm voting yes.
You can vote no, change.
I want to vote no, because I'm united in that I would like to discuss this more. Motion sounds
That's
good.
not, but as Pam said, we already voted on it, we voted on that workshop. It doesn't tie our hands to anything. It just
Really,
means.
it ties our hands to not having a-
Here's what I'm worried about, and I'll be frank, I'm worried about the way it's going to look in the minutes. When people who didn't come today read that in the minutes that we approved the move the school board for, what does that mean? Like that's why I said semantics, it was the wording that I was, that I had a problem with.
I mean-
Not the vote, it was the wording.
The last school board meeting was my first ever school board meeting, sitting on this side of the table. And that was my first ever vote. And it was just, do you want to move the school board, the preschool forward? And it was, the conversation was, in a vote that's 97-97, tied, we as a board owe it to the community to keep the conversation going because it doesn't feel like a tie vote, it doesn't feel like a tie vote is the end of the conversation. And that was my experience with my first ever vote.
Yeah, I agree, I'm going to vote against it, it's semantics, I'm just the wording.
It's touch beans, yeah.
And to be fair, I was going to say this after we voted, I should say this before we vote. One thing that I would really like us to do as a board to get an answer on is I want maybe the school administration and staff to let us know. Right now, the problem seems to me is that we simply don't have the space for a long-term preschool building. We don't have the space in it. It doesn't exist. So short of having new space that we can secure as our own, do we move forward with preschool until the state says we have to, and then we make new space? And I guess I'd like the school to answer us. We can't answer it as a board, so it's not for us to
And
decide.
I think that's what we're getting at, which is that, do we need a committee to decide that, or can we just have that information come to us as 5 people sitting here and say, okay, I think there's no space, or, you know what, I interpret that as there's space, so let's hash that out. You know what I mean? So that's all I'm coming to it with. Is
So I guess it's what I'm saying, is in order for me to, the only question I have left in this whole thing,
Right.
and for me to support preschool, like Peter said at the workshop, he says, it's not fascinating, but you're really not fully advocating for it, and we really aren't. And I guess the reason why I'm not fully advocating for it, Jeff, is I doubt that we have the space. I don't know that we do. It seems to me that we don't have the space. We might be able to squeeze it in for a year, but then does that mean that a year into it or 2 years into it, we're asking to build a new building somewhere on our campus if we can? And that's where I'm not sure we're really, that I'm being honest with you when I say that, because I see that we don't have the space for preschool. And that's why it's really, that's why we're here in New York, that's why we're in this confusion. It seems to me that we don't have the space. I wish we did. I would love it if there was a preschool in the church. I think that would be great. I don't think that would be something that the school district or the town should be responsible for when we can't secure a campus there. So the only question I really have left is what we have for a school building. Do we have the space for preschool? Whether we want it or not isn't relevant to that. Because if the answer is we don't really have the space for preschool, and the only thing we should be considering is or not having it. And I guess that's what's come down to my part. I don't want committees to do that. I really want Gail and the staff to sit down and decide that. And I guess that question for Gail is that something that you could address at some point with the staff and when on the time frame. Because I can go yes tonight, but what does it mean? And there's a really lingering question in my mind. Is the space?
I know we don't have space, and I was going to leave this until the next meeting to talk about that. But the only plan at this point in time that I would be able to get on would be bringing fourth graders in as part of a pre-K class. Probably the only plan that I'm going to get behind because of the issues. And I don't know if the school wants that. But that would probably be the only plan that I would be able to get behind this one there.
Would that then ultimately change based on a state mandate? Would it be 3-year-olds? Like, would you then have to go with, once the state does mandate preschool, which hopefully...
Oh, it was a no-brainer. If state mandated preschool, I would have no problem asking the town for whatever we needed to make it happen, because we have to, so we don't have to.
I guess that's where I'm at too. So I just want to say that before we actually vote. I'm ready to vote now. Everyone else is.
What was the wording on that again?
So to move forward with the plan for preschool.
Okay. I should have one more after
Yes.
this, but okay.
You're welcome to tweet it. Really, I'm just trying to move the conversation
You can have a
forward.
motion.
Yeah, and feel free to.
Consider discussing a plan to move preschool forward?
I mean, here's where I'm at.
Or,
I think it's time for us to say yay or nay on whatever we're doing. I think it's a valid question about the space. Here's the hard part about governing, and I was thinking about this when you said this before. People misinterpret you, or they don't understand all of the conversation that was had because they don't see all of the minutes. I think we have to do the best we can in this space and time with the information we have. And in the 3 years I've been working on this, there have been different answers about the space. So here we are at a new time and a new decision. I think maybe it would be fair to say, Gail, can you tell us for this year, where do you see, look into that crystal ball and tell us where are we at. We have two people who don't think that that is a possibility at this time, that we don't have the space. I trust you guys.
and when we say we don't have the space without it affecting the other 7 age groups of kids that we are required.
Right, and we have to keep in mind, we're required for those other kids. Yes, we're also required for special ed for 3 and up for anyone who has special needs, and we do serve that population already. So, what I'm looking for is this worth talking about anymore, or is this a dead issue?
I think we're moving. I don't think we've finished it yet.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for. Are we moving it forward, or do we move this off the agenda and say, despite the tie vote, despite our general favor, despite that we're mostly in favor of preschool, do we stop the conversation? That being said, if we say we're moving it forward, how do we do it in the most efficient manner possible without going back to a committee that is going to be answering questions that we already looked at? And when I tell you looked at, a million different ways. So, and I'm not begrudging that there might not be a worthy conversation to be had. I'm not saying we should have to stop talking and just vote. I just think let's start to make definitive statements about what are we doing with this? Are we moving forward? What I'm hearing is yes, whether we like the wording of the motion or not. I'm not attached to
That's what I
it.
was trying to get to. Basically, what we're saying tonight is, at this point, we're not going to form a committee because there's already 3 people that don't, or maybe 4 people that don't want to form a committee. What Jess's motion is saying is, we're not forming a committee tonight, but we're still going to talk about it.
That's
You
fine.
know, it's semantically, you're not comfortable with the word, you can vote no or abstain. I think there's 3 people that are going to vote yes, so we'll be able to move the motion. I'll move the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? We good?
Yeah, so that being said, I missed the concrete questions, but I know there are concrete questions. Who can answer those for us so that we can make these decisions?
I think that we all need to decide what do we do, and then we give them the questions. And then we say, okay, let's get those questions answered, and then we come back and we here's the answers to that.
Yeah, but I think as a board, we can decide what to do with that. And we really weren't clear as to what the last work session was. So when we schedule the next thing, I think we'll get a little bit more clear as to what we're going to try to accomplish as a board. I'm going to open up to the floor questions, not about preschool, for, against, or what we're doing, but if anybody needs clarification on what we just decided to do, would be the questions that open up at this point. We'll have citizen comments again at the end of the meeting, but I just wanted, if anybody's not clear, that's what we just did. Mike?
So on a process standpoint, can you line out, like, so there's a meeting, and there's a meeting, there's a meeting, and then there's a, like, goal? Like, is there
So
2 meetings would be my goal.
So right now, our next scheduled meeting is in June.
Yeah.
And we haven't decided anything beyond that. We decided tonight not to have a committee at this point. Between now and June, we might have another meeting, and we might put a committee or not a committee back on the table, but right now, we basically aren't deciding to have a committee, because we're not forming one. And was talk about maybe having a meeting in between now and June. I don't know whether, my guess is schedule's not going to work, and we're not going to be able to find a day where we can all do that. In fact, I'm going to say, it might not be worth talking about. It's not going to happen. With graduations, everything going on between now and then, I don't think anybody's got time for a meeting between now and June. We will have time in the summertime to discuss something like that. They're probably, I'm not seeing a lot of urgency on our part as a board to say, well, we got to come up with a new plan, so we need all these things answered between now and then. We probably don't really need it to be answered very quickly, and we've got time to look through it, because if it's not going to be that much different than the last time that we had that we're going to advocate for or not advocate for, there isn't a lot of questions that we probably need to be answered other than some specific ones. So we could probably schedule a meeting for sometime in the summertime or something like that if we don't get anywhere between now and the next meeting outside of our meetings. Joe?
Just to clarify, because then, looking ahead in the timeline, your budget needs to be in October or November.
January.
But you start.
We start looking at it.
When you're talking about numbers, it's like October, November.
Yeah.
So in terms of looking ahead, like that's when, you're not waiting until March again to hear the numbers. Like, I don't know if that was part of your timeline.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking.
hold up the mirror of like, I understand there isn't urgency, but also everything stacks up, right? So just trying to understand like a little bit like how those comes.
What would be ideal is next month, we have some of those questions answered, and we can, all of us can look at it and say what, I thought there were some really great issues raised. I read the minutes, I spoke to people. I think there were answers there were questions that were left unanswered by us at the council. We need to answer those. That's on us to do that. I think there were some new things, not new things, but things raised in different ways. So between now and the next meeting, I would hope that let's parse out what questions need to be answered, start to do that.
Let's start now. We have 2 questions we can give these guys right now and ask them the answer for the next meeting. One was Gary's question.
I don't know whether, that's what I'm saying, for time, I whether we need the answers to those questions.
So quickly, we have to leave the meeting and we keep moving forward.
I'm going to ask that just so that we're all on the same page, let's start with the proposal we had and see what if anything is worth keeping and what's worth cutting. Because there are things worth cutting, right? Like the space, right? That is not movable anymore, right? There might be certain things that we can all agree on that we can check off easily. Like, do we want to keep that time of day? Because we tried to, that was a balancing act. Instead of doing a full day preschool, we tried to temper that. Or is that another thing that we would need to look into, right? How many things do we actually need to make decisions on? Because the space might make it for us.
Well, the first of the question was that you just asked. We need that answer. And you just said you need that answer, but so we should have to have that answer. So you may keep you. And then, at that point, we'll take one.
I don't want to say we should have an answer without at least hearing from Gail a little bit as to whether that's, just not really going to be worth it for her between now and then.
I have a return question. So when you're talking about space and facility needs, and somebody mentioned the programs that we currently have, that's a parameter that I have to look at. Do you want me, is it okay to change our programs, configurations, change what we're doing to get preschool? I know when we started, I was pretty clear with the original committee that I was hesitant to change the quality of the education that the other students were getting. And we were working really hard on personalized learning for the older children and all of those kinds of things. And someone said, well, we can send the sixth graders to bottom. Yeah, there are lots of ways that we could make it work, and we could make it work. The staff is talented. We could make any kind of configuration work, but I would need guidance from your perspective on whether or not changing the current programming for our current students is something that you would accept going forward.
I think we'd have to. And I mean, to be honest with you, we want to use words like minimal. I was waiting to kind of hear what you just said. Whatever you give us, we'll make it work, and we'll make it work great. I was kind of waiting to hear that, and that's just it. I think we have to be open as a board. If we're going to say, okay, figure out how to make preschool work in the building, then we have to accept that this school, it's working fantastically. It's a great school. Our kids perform fantastically. So is there a problem we're trying to solve with preschool? No, we're not trying to solve a problem. It's just we're trying to add a really good benefit to our town. But I don't want to compromise the current thing that we have, and that's kind of where I'm at. I just don't see that you have the space, and short of the Jackson School coming back to me and saying, we've got the space, we'll make it work, everything's going to be fantastic, or if they're coming back and saying, well, these things will be compromised, will still be great. I don't know. That's the kind of thing. I don't want them to have to do that between now and June, when they've got probably 10,000 other things that they're probably trying to accomplish between now and then. That's why I can wait and hear that answer in September.
Okay.
I don't need that answer.
I'm just trying to make them to keep the ball.
And I think just to go back to what you said before, the question you asked is that as far as the board, we would need to move some, we would need to have something concrete for September, October, so to present to the community, so that there can be listening posts or board meetings that you all are attending, so that you can get your opinions on it, right? So as far as timeline goes, nothing is immediate until that. By September, October, we should have something that's fairly fully formed in order to move it forward, right? Because we have to make our final decisions by November or December. So that's where we would be at.
Sarah.
Well, as Gail just spoke, I wouldn't want any compromise to what the children are getting now to put in a program that is not me.
Sarah, I do appreciate that, but I'm really trying to get this goals meeting on it. It's a question of where we're at logistically and a discussion. There will be public comments at the end of the meeting. So we probably will. We're not expecting a meeting between now and June. Let's get prepared. And if you have questions that we want to answer, we don't need an answer between now and June, I don't think. But let's have questions. If we have questions that we want to see different than the current plan, then we'll do that, and maybe we'll make a decision then as to what we're going to do with it.
Right, and if there is another idea, like if it's just 4-year-olds in that classroom, if that's just, I'd like to hear about that.
I would like to know everything about that before I vote on anything.
Yeah, so maybe we can all just start to do that, so if there are, because that's something that would be worth getting the info on, because we didn't do that. We looked at the need to serve 3
So it sounds kind of more like, let's just, rather than having the answer to the questions and the goals that we set, then they're probably going to become just the goals for the board to have answered on time frame, and we'll try to kind of set for the next few years.
So let's shoot for like July, a meeting in July maybe. Would that work?
Thanks, Joan, for clarifying what Mike's
question. We're going to have a special meeting.
No, Mike, you understand? Because I'm not sure.
We usually go schedule it.
All right, let's we go this. Let's move on. 8A. Plan session report. Anybody questions, comments? Consider a motion for the approval of the agreement with Bartlett for school nursing services.
So
Any questions, comments on that?
that's what was in the budget, right?
Yeah, and Bartlett approved it at their last meeting, I believe. All in favor?
I wanted to say something before we go over it.
Oh.
I said I'm for it, but I still think that our principal should know. If you come up with a better plan, let us, because for years we did it, and we just can't hang on at the moment.
And again, like I said, that's more important for the public,
Yeah.
that we are continuing to look at options that are best for us, and that's our best one. Consider a motion for the approval of the agreement with Bartlett for library media services.
So,
Any questions or comments towards that?
same question for the budget?
Correct. All those in favor? Consider a motion for the approval of the agreement with Bartlett for OT services.
So moved. Question, same question? Budget? Correct. None of this is new.
All those in favor? Consider a motion for the approval of the agreement with Bartlett for family support liaison services.
Second.
Questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor? That's unanimous. Entertain a motion to declare equipment surplus and authorize disposal. So this comes up every year, you know, all those in favor? Unanimous. Kevin, anything?
Just real quickly, I don't know if, and I hear the concerns about some of the things going on at the high school from different folks, but I'd like to just take a minute to recognize last Monday's comedy school board meeting, because they get the opportunity to hear from the high school on a regular basis. There were quite a few students who did presentations and in recognition. So this is the newsletter. Sarah Chase does it out of our office. She does an extraordinary job. It does have information. It is online, but I didn't print out 8,000 copies. But it does highlight some of the things going on at all the different schools. Of note, we had two young ladies compete at the Bex Robotics Championship out and I'll forward a video to you folks if you haven't seen it. It's unbelievable. And they're only sophomores and do a tremendous job. There was the regional science fair. I don't know if anybody had an opportunity to go down there. We actually had one sophomore at the high school who went out to compete at the national level, representing the state of New England. Joan Heisler's son and Chase Lee, another student in the machine tool program going into engineering, were selected to do an internship with NASA this summer. One of how many? 4 students in the United States. So they're also taking a trip down to Goddard Space Museum. They've offered more AP courses at the high school this year than ever before. So I understand there are concerns, but there are also some movements forward in the positive direction. And then Therese Davidson, the high school music teacher, she was selected as New Hampshire Music Teacher of the Year. So I understand the concerns, but there are also a lot of great things to celebrate the accomplishments of the students. But take a nice read out of that. And like I said, it's online at the SU Mag website. That's all I have.
Thanks, Troy.
I just have our Blues Track data for you to take a look at. The Blues Track days overall worked really well. You can see that we have 7 or 6 after we bought some of them out.
No, we have 5 cancellations in the district.
26. Including the day in October.
Oh, right.
Right, because we had the flood that caught us about before Blizzard bags, and then 2 of the days on December 12th and January 4th, we did the Blizzard bags, and you can see the percentage of students and the numbers of students at each grade level that completed their work. 98% first day, 92% second day. And then the next 2 days, the 23rd of January and the 3rd of March, or the 8th of March, I did not call those Blizzard bag days. It's just, we'll need to make those 2 days up. And then on the 24th, they canceled the teacher workshop day, which kind of brought us back a day. And you can see in that last column is when the last day of classes was scheduled, how that kind of moved. The final snowstorm was actually on April 16th. And that was mostly a sleet and freezing rain, and so I went ahead and called a Blizzard bag day on that day. We did not get as good participation that day. However, we had a number of students that contacted their
Power outages.
there were power outages, and people had assumed by April 16th that they weren't going to be doing Blizzard bags anymore. But the teachers correspond by email and phone with the parents, so we were able to get 89%, which still gets us over the 80%. We like to have a higher percentage of kids that complete the work and correspond with the teachers, but we have found them to be quite successful.
Teachers do, they like them?
For the most part, you can comment more. I know, particularly at the younger grades, it gives the families some kind of window into what the kids are learning about and encourages them a lot. It's like game playing and things they can do with their families, so it creates a nice opportunity for parents and kids to interact and read together and play some nice games and things that help them in that season. It's a way to reinforce. It's not new learning. We know it's not new learning, but it's a way to reinforce their skills at home.
Hopefully there won't be any more.
We're kind of talking on that.
Yeah, thanks for putting this together. This is great information. It's, I think it's a great way for us to review it anyway to make sure that you don't want us to change.
And I know you've had questions about in the past, so take a look at what it looks like.
And I just wanted to reiterate, so we're looking at the pavilion raising, because I know a lot of folks weren't here when you guys talked about it. You're looking at the 8th?
We're looking at the 8th.
The 8th of June.
Yeah, and if the weather's bad, the 15th. That's the plan right now. Basically, we can't do it without Curtis. We really need to have his expertise for a number of reasons, but the biggest one being safety. He's done hundreds. And so then he wasn't available on the 1st. And that's really pushing it for the next week. We decided that it makes no sense to move it to the 8th. 15th is the very end of, that's 4 days before we're done. So
Is that right now? You should look out back, because the beams are all out there, and people have been coming by all week long doing some planing, and they'll be staying soon to try to get everything ready to just kind of put up.
Is the raising open to everyone?
yes, so it's an old-fashioned barn raising. So there's going to be, you'll feel like there's a good bunch of time that's standing around. Basically, the experts will have the bents put together first, and then one bent goes up and it's secured, and then the other bent goes up, and so people will be on pike poles. People will hold the poles and push it up. We have made it easy, and we got hinges designed, so the hinges will be mounted to the top of the piers, so that it makes it safer to raise it by hand. We do have, Michael and Stephen are letting us have the lull down here for that period of time in case we do need, something from the top to support it. We'll have the lull here for that. But yeah, the community is certainly welcome to be a part of it, and up until in between now and then, if anybody has any time, there's right now we're getting down to the finer details that require some carpentry skills. But then after that, there will be, if you want to check in with us about oiling the beams, they all need to be oiled with a preservative, and I'm hoping to be getting that started. I'm hoping John will be ready for that to start. That's kind of my job, my messy job. Hopefully Monday, getting that started. So yeah, it's moving right along. So the coolest thing was the kids, the 4th and 5th graders, teaching the little kids about the tools. That was so much fun. They loved it. Yeah.
Open it back up to citizen comments. And sorry about that. Try to go to you first. Sorry, cut it off before.
No, that's fine. My comment was that I just didn't want to see any compromise in what we're already doing to fit in for a preschool. And the other thing was I was going to ask Gail, how many kindergarten students did you end up getting?
We had 9 come to kindergarten registration, and I had Susan print up enrollment for next year. We were expecting 49 Jackson students and 2 additional homeschoolers for 51. So that's the highest number it's been in a number of years. We've had several new registrations for next year. So we're excited.
I don't know when they'll be ready, but everybody's probably seen it. There's 15 apartments coming into town.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that the middle school science fair and the high school science fair happened down at the Tech Village, and our Jackson students are in great hands over at Bartlett. I think there were a total of, don't quote me on the numbers here, but I think there were a total of 6 prizes for the middle schoolers, and of those, the Bartlett kids got 5 of them. So they're in good hands over there. It was really, really impressive. And I also had one other question. Is the high school going to go to change the grading system? Does the high school, they're not going to the 4-3-2-1 system?
Not in the immediate future.
So the kids that are in middle school right now, with the numbers, they'll go back to letters when they get to high school.
That's correct.
That's something I think that we should pay attention to.
Yeah, high school, we should probably change that a little bit, and just be high school. Sitting there every time.
I know I'm not a Jackson resident, but I just was totally amazed. I don't know, Kevin, if you talked about it before, because it was like a month ago, that 35 kids were inducted into the National Technical Honor Society from the Career Tech. And so to sing the praises, is it in there?
It's in.
To sing the praises of the Career Tech Department. I probably should go to the next Bartlett meeting and say that out loud there, Scott, too. Because they just have a phenomenal bunch there. 35 kids from representing all the departments. It was phenomenal. It was really kind of cool.
Thanks, Joyce.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to preschool and say that while I was not in favor of the proposal that was put forth at the annual meeting, I was very excited about the points that you enumerated from the workshop. You said, there were 4 things maybe that you thought you could change the proposal that might have a greater agreement from the town. And I was very excited about that. I could support putting the 4-year-olds in the kindergarten. I liked that a lot. I also like Keith's proposal about perhaps making a pilot program for a year. I thought that was a good thought. So those are my thoughts about the preschool. I really hope you will come forward with a proposal like that, because I think you'd be really surprised at the approval you will get for that. And just one other thing. When I hear about mandating public preschool, I bet you all know how long it took for kindergarten to be mandated by the state legislature. It took 20 years or something. So I'm not the least bit concerned about the mandating public preschool in the next few years. So There you go.
I don't think we were too much too, but now what I am concerned about, that I wasn't before, is Bartlett's Got. I want to make it with the best school around, so that's why I want to talk more about this.
We'll take a sixth grader. Plenty of room.
Ooh, there's this bargaining going on. I wanted to reiterate a little bit what Joyce just said, but from a standpoint of housing, because I'm on this housing board in Jackson as well, affordable housing, or just lack of housing. And I think that having at least 4-year-olds here is also an appeal, certainly to young families. And what new information you might have when you look at this, because you're saying we have all the information. Some information that I'm hearing, and that is obvious, is that Bartlett now is going to have the preschool, and how many 3-year-olds, how many 4-year-olds, how many 3-year-olds part-time. And I know a number of people are keeping the kids outside of preschool because they don't want to send them full-time. And so that's all kind of information, but if we as a town were offering 4-year-olds coming right into the school, I think it's a certain appeal, and it also adds to that viability when we get down to the 30s in terms of numbers. You know, you have a big class graduating and you drop your numbers. If you take those kids in, you just have more kids in the school.
Anything else at this point? I do thank everyone for coming, and again, I apologize for the confusion all the time, and I know it's probably not fun coming here and getting grief about how it's scheduled and sometimes, but it's important that happens, and thanks for bringing me up and letting us know, hey, you guys messed up on time, and it actually does affect people if you're not happy about it, so we hear that, we try, but as I said several times in the past, we'll try to do better.
Just the meetings generally 6 o'clock?
The meetings are generally 6 o'clock. This is a
The only reason we pick factory tonight is because we, at the beginning of every year, once there was a new board in place, we need to decide who's on committees, so we decided, rather than go until 8:30, 9 o'clock tonight, let's start early, get the committees out of the way.
But that really wasn't important to us.
No.
6 o'clock would have been a good time.
Yeah.
And I couldn't make it.
So I guess my concern is, where should we be looking for the date, time, and location for the meeting?
Well, so,
right now, we're most of the
right now, it's, so we're about to set the next date and time meeting, so June 8th, 2018, in this room, 6 o'clock. This is when we tend to do it.
But normally I would say e-news, and I think, Penny, if you go back and you look at e-news,
please clarify. So this is where the confusion comes from. This is what's important. So right now we just set the date and the time. We don't advertise it in the paper.
SAU 9 website, under each town has their agendas listed. So the school boards.
But again, all of that stuff isn't, it's hopefully the right information will get there. It doesn't always. Where it will be right is right now in our minutes and recording. So when you see us do that, that's where it is. We have to post it on the building. So it's on the front of the school or here is where you'll find that. And that will have the right time, and it has to. So we have to have it there within 24 hours, I think. You have to have it, so it can't be Saturday, Sunday, it has to be business days. So where you'll always find the right information is right here and right now, and also posted on the building here, and we posted at the town office, I believe, is that place. So those are the only 2 places where you'll find the most accurate information. Now, other places that we will show it, again, this is where it can get messed up. We show it on the sign. That's not the right time. I think we've done a really good job of getting the right time on the SAU 9 website, and it got messed up in e-news this time. So there are going to be times when it gets missed in translation. If it happens to get missed in translation to those places, it's unfortunate, and we look stupid, and I end up having to apologize and hear your grief. By law, we have to get it right now, and we have to get it right in the buildings. If we don't, then it's not a legitimate meeting. So that's where the difference will come from. And so what we need to do is at least make sure that we're translation to other places where we don't legally have to have it, but we do to try to make it more transparent as to what we're doing. I apologize for getting messed up there, but that's how that happened. So, yeah, you will find the information there, and hopefully it will be correct.
Look from the agenda, that's what I was gonna say. You see on e-news, if there's an agenda, this is what we're going by tonight. So
Right.
that's how I confirm. When I where's that meeting? Where is it? I look at this.
I mean, and it's, you like keep calling me at 5 o'clock, or, 3 o'clock, and I didn't get through town until almost 5 o'clock, and he's like, what time's the meeting tonight? And I'm like, I think it's at 5:30, but I haven't gone to the mailbox yet and gotten this. So I was on my way to the mailbox to get this, I got sidetracked there. I didn't know whether he meant that on the building it was posted wrong. I didn't realize he was talking about the sign out front. So I stopped by and I looked on the school box out there. I saw 5:30. So I got a piece of 5:30. I never even saw the sign out there until I came down here at 5:45, and then all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, the sign out there is what Keith was talking about, and that's how that all transpired. So again, I apologize.
June 18th, 6 o'clock.
June 18th, 6 o'clock here.
Oh, that's the Bartlett graduation.
Yeah, actually, I knew that way, and I don't need it.
None of us will be here, but that's what I'm going to do. Should we change our date for that, if it's possible? I mean,
You want as long as it looks for same day.
it's almost possible.
Tuesday.
I can do Tuesday the 12th. It's the last day of
It
school.
does make it hard for Kate though.
Monday's good for you. Monday's are good, the 18th is fine. The 11th is good.
You may not get D on the 11th, but it'll try to keep the same Katie and myself.
What time is the bottom?
It wouldn't be you. We have to be clean.
Hey, you know, we have a kid there. What time is the
I'm going to park graduation too, actually, so. No, the candidates.
I think it's at 5:30, we have to be there at 5.
Can we do something like 3:30 that day?
Can you do that?
Actually, you know what, we can stick to our meeting.
You can do it 4 o'clock.
Be there at that?
Be in Bartlett.
I mean, if we do 4 o'clock, we can just say we're going to end the meeting at 5, no matter what. I mean, it's kind of pushing it, but I'm okay with that.
So you have it.
Listen, wait till the parents.
Well, none of us have tried in, we just had to be there, like, to participate in it.
Right,
But not actually graduating.
No, we did that, right?
No, that's what I mean. None of us have been actually graduating, we're just part of the ceremony.
Well, I think it's stressful for yourself. It wasn't stressful.
What's that?
To do it earlier on the 18th?
It wouldn't be stressful for me.
Yeah.
If we would eat these, we would be doing it at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, that's true.
What do we do, 3:30?
I can't be there at 3:30, but maybe if Pam's available, she can do that. Katie and I.
If they not, so then why not do it?
Well, we could take care of that. I'm okay doing it too. It's just, we're gonna try to, we're not gonna find it in the day, so.
Yeah,
I guess- What's the earliest we can do it on?
I see you anytime.
I can as well.
Monday.
Yeah, is there a window during the day, especially you, if you're gonna sneak out?
Anytime after mom's law.
It's all looking very great.
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock could be possible.
3 would give us time, I think.
1. It's up to you.
Anytime, time, we can work through.
So can we do 1?
I can make 1 o'clock happen.
1:30, do we say, or do you think a little
No,
more?
earlier.
So 1
1
o'clock.
o'clock on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So yeah, a little bit out of the ordinary.
We now figure, did anybody leave, we just said this is it? So,
You know,
I
it's
need,
like-
I need that's in favor, whoever's responsible to put this on the news. when the date is, can we make sure we use the word change, changing? Just so people may actually just look at it.
So 1 o'clock on the 18th.
And where, should we use this one again? Or we won't know until we get closer.
Really excited.
Will you be raised yet? No.
And is that what we're doing from the high school?
I think so. And that's one way to get them all rolling. I don't know what
And maybe we should just say, let's target, like, no later than the end of July to have a big two, so we can do something with that day, so I don't have to try to make it July, where everything.
Yeah. We make that one.
I just have a question or two. So, there was a wellness committee, it did come up to me. I was on it, remember, I was not making it well, so I wanted to get off it, but it's not listed, so I just remember there's going on. There is no, we don't have a wellness committee anymore, is that gone?
It's the SE 9.
Okay, and we don't send anything to that.
I think it will be this month.
And it was, okay.
No?
So,
Because it's not listed, it was listed last year.
Because it has to be 9.
Okay, so we don't, we love to have.
They're looking for a representative.
3:30, like Mondays.
Yeah.
So if we, I mean, if the schedule changes in the fall, I could do, but I wanted to ask about that. And then, I think given what Tish said, I would like to come up with something concrete, whether we, committees are dangerous. They can be very effective, but I do think they need to pay more attention to that kind of stuff. I think you raised it, you really opened my eyes, and so whether it's keeping it on the agenda, or should we be doing something, we know something came out of the joint meeting, but we're going to be talking about it as part of it. But what's
the
happening?
nice thing about it is, there's nothing we can do about it right now. We can talk about it all we want.
Right.
We can't do anything about it right now. And the nice thing about, when I say the nice thing
I
about
think
that
there's
is,
pressure on
is
it.
we've got some time.
Yeah.
Because what we do right now isn't gonna change much. But we need to have all of our ducks in a row.
Right.
When that comes. So
No.
that's why we keep bringing it up.
No, I'm-
So we didn't talk about it yet, but remember, we need to soon. You know.
I mean, part of what I'm thinking is, I think we hear a lot of the good things, and I think there are a lot of good things. But I think there are a lot of things we should be aware of that are for improvement, or might not be a good fit for certain things that we don't hear, because you only hear about it at the post office or whatever it is. And I'm not saying we need to kind of listen to those, but I do think we should make that a more focused conversation. And I don't know, when PHS like this comes up, I mean, what's a good way to approach this so that we're getting more information? There are particular issues that we want to discuss.
Oh, I don't think that it's mutually exclusive to Jackson. And I think that would be something that the SE 9 board can do a better job of as well.
Right.
That's what I was kind of trying to draw.
Yeah, and I think that, the high school's undergoing ENAS accreditation, they're getting ready, they're doing their self-study. So part of that is to do community surveys, to do student surveys. So there's information that can come back. I do think that program of studies, that there are pieces that we can do a better job of. And to be quite honest with you, a lot of it does go directly to the Connolly School Board. And that information doesn't necessarily trickle out. Because good, bad, or indifferent, it is what it is.
Right.
When you're talking about discipline rates or attendance rates or AP courses or SAT scores, that needs to be shared out a little more regularly.
Right.
And we can make that a point of emphasis at the SAT 9 board, because, as I said, it's not mutually exclusive to Jackson.
That would be really helpful. Yeah.
Joe Montini has been doing a pretty good job of driving that process, I think, and not as a comment thing, but as an SAT comment thing. And, if any of the comments involving input as far as that's concerned from the SAT 9 board. But I think it's still important for us to keep you focused on it so that we have answers to our community for it. And that's where we can, I think, do a better job of that, so.
And some of the ways it came up is because some of the board members, myself and Andy, started having kids in high school, started realizing some of
Oh,
those
yeah.
problems.
I mean, I learned a ton from him just in a couple conversations recently, that we're not having at this level. And so if there are things that you can think of to get us asking questions, please let us know.
I think I told you, my son, went got his schedule, and he numbered your orders, and he was a straight A student. And he gave 3 sets of calls, and he sat from his high numbers, he get his first 5 things, and came home. And then he looked like a prince, actually, first. So after, when we back and forth with that, hospitals and stuff, like, we got it changed. Everyone we got make those phone calls, and well, that's what we got. And I know what, French is, you're 19 in the school, you want to can't take French for.
Right.
So those are the ramifications. But again, the good thing is, it's nothing we can change right
Right
now.
now, right. Other than just
So
that.
it means it's not the rush, I say the good thing, it means it's.
Right.
So who's going to break the news to Jen? She's on all the committees.
Maybe a parent dialogue, a little more parent dialogue that you could invite and create. And it's like that kind of information. But it's, of course, you got to advocate for your kid, but it's sitting there going, these are the great classes. Oh, no, do this. Oh, make sure they get into this class because this will forward them here. Stuff you don't know. If your first kid especially, you have no idea.
And I think the smart thing for you guys is to be, use your parent hat to be able to bring that information so that when you guys are approached by, by community members, you're well versed enough to advocate for them with the Conway board or SAU9 board. That's so, I've had conversations with Nancy and Bartlett about the same thing, and I think that's, I think that's how Bartlett and Jackson school boards support their parents at Kennett, is just making sure you're really well educated so that when Tisha, goes to you or I go to Bartlett, that you guys you can hold your own. I think that's really important.
And then we have to get this preschool thing out of the way, we can have a listening folks, and we can encourage high school students to come, we get questions for you, tell us how your experience.
Good example.
Thanks,
Graduating and you drop your numbers, if you take those kids in, you just have more kids in the school.
Anything else at this point? I do thank everyone for coming, and again, I apologize for the confusion all the time, and Penny, I know it's probably not fun coming here and getting disagreed about how we schedule things sometimes, but it's important that happens, and thanks for bringing me up and letting us know, hey, you guys messed up on time, and it actually does affect people, and you're not happy about it, so we hear that, we try, but as I said several times in the past, we'll try to do better, obviously.
Just the meetings generally 6 o'clock?
The meetings are generally 6 o'clock. This is a
The only reason we pick Factory tonight is because we, at the beginning of every year, once there was a new board in place, we need to decide who's on committee, so we decided, rather than go until 8:30, 9 o'clock tonight, let's start early, get the committees out of the way.
But that really wasn't important to us.
No.
6 o'clock would have been a good time.
Yeah.
And I couldn't make it.
So I guess my concern is, where should we be looking for the date, time, and location for the meeting?
Well, so,
right now, when we're most of the
right now, it's, so we're about to start the next date time meeting, so June 8th, 2018, in this room, 6 o'clock. This is when we tend to do it.
But normally I would say e-news, and I think, Penny, if you go back and you look at the e-news,
please clarify. So this is where the confusion comes from. This is what's important. So right now, we just set the date and the time. We don't advertise it in the paper.
SAU9 website, under each town has their agendas listed. So the school boards.
But again, all of that stuff it's hopefully the right information will get there. It doesn't always. Where it will be right is right now in our minutes and recording. So when you see us do that, that's where it is. We have to post it on the building. So it's on the front of the school or here is where you'll find that. And that will have the right time. And it has to. So we have to have it there. Within 24 hours, I think. You have to have it. So it can't be Saturday, Sunday. It has to be business days. So where you'll always find the right information is right here and right now. And also posted on the building here, and we posted at the town office, I believe, is that the place. So those are the only 2 places where you'll find the most accurate information. Now, other places that we will show it, again, this is where Ken would get messed up. We showed on the sign, that's not the right time. I think we've done a really good job of getting the right time on the SOU9 website, and it got messed up in e-news this time. So there are going to be times when it gets missed in translation. If it happens to get missed in translation to those places, it's unfortunate, and we look stupid, and I end up having to really apologize and give you grief. By law, we have to get it right now, and we have to get it right in the buildings. If we don't, then it's not a legitimate meeting. So that's where the difference will come from. And so what we need to do is at least make sure that we're translation to other places where we don't legally have to have it, but we do to try to make it more transparent as to what we're doing. I apologize for getting messed up there, but that's how that happened. So yeah, you will find the information there, and hopefully it will be correct.
But look from the agenda, is what I was going to say. You see on e-news, if there's an agenda, this is what we're going by tonight. So
right.
That's not confirmed. When I do, where is it? I look at this.
I mean, and it's, you like Keith called me at 5 o'clock, or no, 3 o'clock, and I didn't get through town until almost 5 o'clock, and he's like, what time's the meeting tonight? And I'm like, I think it's at 5:30, but I haven't gone to the mailbox yet and gotten this. So I was on my way to the mailbox to get this. I got sidetracked there. I didn't know whether he meant that on the building it was posted wrong. I didn't realize he was talking about the sign out front. So I stopped by and I looked on the school box out there. I saw 5:30. So I got a piece of 5:30. I never even saw the sign out there. And so I came down here at 5:45, and then all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, the sign out there is what Keith was talking about. And that's how it all transpired. So again, I apologize.
June 18th, 6 o'clock.
June 18th, 6 o'clock here.
Oh, that's the bar graduation.
Yeah, actually, I knew that way. And I won't be here.
None of us will be here, but that's what I'm going to do. Should we change our meeting to that if it's possible? I mean,
You want as long as it looks perfect, same thing.
it's almost possible.
Tuesday.
I can do Tuesday the 12th. It's the last day of school.
Doesn't make it hard for Keith though.
Yeah, Monday's good for you.
Mornings are good, the 18th is fine. The 11th is good.
You may not get D on the 11th, but it'll try to keep it. Or can you the same kid you're going to stop.
What time is the bottom?
It wouldn't be, yeah. We have to be clean.
Hey, do you know, we have a kid there. What time the bottom is going to be?
No, I'm going to park graduation too, actually. So. No, the candidates.
I think it's at 5:30, we have to be there at 5.
Can we do something like at 5:30 that day?
Can you do that?
Actually, you know what, we can stick around, we can go out.
You can do it 4 o'clock. and you can
Be there at that?
Be in bar.
I mean, if we do 4 o'clock, we can just say we're going to end the meeting at 5, no matter what. I mean, it's kind of pushing it, but I'm okay with that.
So we have it.
It's a waste of the parents.
Well, none of us have parents in it, we just have to be there because our kids are participating in it. But not actually graduation.
No, we kids are, right?
No, that's what I mean. None of us have kids actually graduating, we're just part of the ceremony.
Why make it stressful for yourself? Will that be stressful?
What's that?
To do it earlier on the 18th?
It wouldn't be stressful to me.
No?
It would be decent,
What do we do?
doing it at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, that's true.
What do we do, 3:30?
I can't be here at 3:30, but maybe if Pam's available, she could do the Katie on Friday. Another meeting.
Well, if they are, well, then why not do it?
Well, we could take care of that. I'm okay doing it too. It's just, we're going to try to, we're not going to find it in the day, so.
Yeah,
I guess- what's the earliest we can do it on?
I can do it anytime.
I can as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, Monday.
Yeah, is there a window during the day, especially even if you're gonna sneak out to come and see?
Anytime after 1 o'clock.
It's all looking very great.
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock could be possible.
3 would give us time, I think.
1. It's up to you.
Anytime, time, usually we'll work
So
through.
can I do one?
I can make 1 o'clock happen.
1:30, we say, or do you think a little
No,
higher?
earlier.
So 1
So 1
o'clock?
o'clock, Wednesday.
Okay.
So yeah, a little bit out of order.
We now see this, if anybody needs, we just said this is it. So, you know, like these guys in favor, whoever's responsible to put this on can do is, when the date is, can we make sure we use the word change, just so people may actually just look at it.
So 1 o'clock on the 18th.
And where, should we use this one again? Or we won't know until we get closer.
Yeah.
Really nice Sunday.
Will you be raised yet? No.
And is that
Yeah.
what we're doing from the preschool?
I think so.
1 o'clock.
And that's one way to get the ball rolling. I don't know that we
And maybe we should just say, let's target no later than the end of July to have a big view. So if we can do something that day, I don't want to plan on in July, where everybody wants to.
Yeah. We make that one.
So, thank you. I just have a question or two. So, there was a bonus committee. It did come up tonight. I was on it, remember, I was not making it well, so I wanted to get off it, but it's not listed, so I just read through, remember, it's going on. There is no, we don't have a bonus committee anymore, is that gone?
It's the SE 9.
Okay, and we don't send anything to that.
I think it was,
And it was, okay.
So,
Because it's not listed, it was listed last year. Okay, so we don't, we love that.
They're looking for a representative.
Like Mondays.
Yeah.
So if if the schedule changed in the fall, I could do it. I wanted to ask about that. And then, I think given what Tish said, I would like to come up with something concrete, whether we, committees are dangerous. They can be very effective, but I do think we need to pay more attention to that kind of stuff. I think you raised it, you really opened my eyes. And so whether it's keeping it on the agenda or should we be doing something, I know something came out of the joint meeting where we're going to be talking about it as part of it. But what's
the
happening?
nice thing about it is, there's nothing we can do about it right now. We can talk about it all we want.
Right.
We can't do anything about it right now. And the nice thing about, when I say the nice thing
I
about
think
that
there's
is,
pressure on
is
it.
we've got some time.
Yeah.
Because what we do right now isn't gonna change much. But we need to have all of our ducks in a row.
Right.
When that comes. So
No.
that's why we keep bringing it up.
No, I'm-
We're gonna talk about shit, but remember, we need to soon.
I mean, a good part of what I'm thinking is I think we hear a lot of the good things, and I think there are a lot of good things. But I think there are a lot of things we should be aware of that are for improvement, or might not be a good fit for certain things that we don't hear, because you only hear about it at the post office or whatever it is. And I'm not saying we need to kind of listen to those, but I do think we should make that a more focused conversation. And I don't know, when PHS studies comes up, I mean, what's a good way to approach this so that we're getting more information? There are particular issues that we're on.
Oh, I don't think that it's mutually exclusive to Jackson. And I think that would be something that the SEU 9 board can do a better job of as well.
Right.
That's what I was kind of trying to draw.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, the high school is undergoing ENAS accreditation. They're getting ready, they're doing their self-study. So part of that is to do community surveys, to do student surveys. So there's information that can come back. I do think that program of studies, that there are pieces that we can do a better job of. And to be quite honest with you, a lot of it does go directly to the Connolly School Board. And that information doesn't necessarily trickle out. Because good, bad, and different, it is what it is. When you're talking about discipline rates or attendance rates or AP courses or SAT scores, that needs to be shared out a little more regularly.
Right.
And we can make that a point of emphasis at the SAT 9 board, because, as I said, it's not mutually exclusive to Jackson.
That would be really helpful, you know.
Joe Montini's been doing a pretty good job of driving that process, I think, and not as a comment thing, but as an SAU comment thing. And, you know, if any comments been welcoming input as far as that's concerned from the SAU board. But I think it's still important for us to keep you focused on it so that we have answers to our community for it. And that's where we can, I think, do a better job about that, so.
And some of the ways it came up is because some of the board members, myself and Andy, started having kids in high school, started realizing some of those problems.
I mean, I learned a ton from him just in a couple conversations recently, you know, that we're not having at this level. And so if there are things that you can think of to get us asking questions, please let us know.
I think I told you, my son's summer, he got his schedule, they would number them, order, and he was a straight A student. And they gave 3 sets of calls, and they started from this high number, they get his first 5 things, and came home. And then he looked like my friends graduated first. So after, when we back and forth with that, and stuff, like we got it changed. Everyone we got make those calls, and that's what we got. And I know what, if you think French is, you manage to go to school, you want to can't take French school.
Right.
So those are the recommendations. But again, the good thing is, it's nothing we can change right now.
Right. Other than
So
just
to me, it's not a rush, I say a good thing, because it's.
So who's going to break the news to Jen that she's on all committees?
Maybe a parent dialogue, a little more parent dialogue that you could invite and create. And it's like that kind of information. But it's, of course, you got to advocate for your kid, but it's sitting there going, these are the great classes. Oh, no, do this. Oh, make sure they get into this class because this will forward them here. Stuff you don't know, your first kid especially, you have no idea.
And I think the smart thing for you guys is to use your parent hat to be able to bring that information so that when you guys are approached by community members, you're well versed enough to advocate for them with the Conway board or SAU 9 board. That's so, I've had conversations with Nancy and Bartlett about the same thing, and I think I think that's how Bartlett and Jackson school boards support their parents at Kennett, is just making sure you're really well educated so that when Tisha, goes to you or I go to Bartlett, that you guys you can hold your own. And I think that's really important.
And then we after we get this preschool thing out of the way, we can have a listening folks, and we can encourage high school students to come. We get questions for you. That's how your experience.
Good as well.
Thanks, everyone.